What's up, fellow collectors? Guys, we're down here in the museum on a beautiful Friday morning. This Friday is a little bit more special than other Fridays. Today's my birthday, and I'm still wrestling with being 50, the big 50. But what better way to celebrate my first day as a 50-year-old than to come down here to the museum and share a little story with you about how I became a collector, a toy collector. So I've been getting a lot of questions about that from good friends of mine, good collector buddies of mine, and just subscribers and viewers that see our channel, see our collection, and kind of want to know where it all started, where it all began. And that's easy. I've never quite shared that story before, but if I'm going to share that story, I guess it'll be on my channel with you guys. Um, it started back in 1974. To be honest with you, I was 4 years old, moving from my parents moved me from Detroit, Michigan, to East Cleveland, Ohio, in the fall of 1974. And like a true 4-year-old who loved toys even then, I had to sit and watch a lot of cousins and I guess friends uh, get toys that we just couldn't afford. You know, the Adventure Team, G.I. Joe, and all these super awesome action figures like the $6 Million Man, all of these toys and stuff. So growing up, didn't have a lot of that stuff. Food, lights, utilities were more important at that time. Being from a family that was financially struggling, but that didn't mean we couldn't have fun, and that didn't mean that we didn't enjoy the toys that we got. But Christmas of 1974 was the year that the collecting bug, if you will, was kind of born in me. I became aware of the, how should I say it? I became aware. I mean, because I still took my toys out. Okay, I still took my toys out, but I really became aware of what toys really meant to me. And what they could mean down the road, and that's at a very early age. But the Lone Ranger, the Gabriel Long Ranger, the 10-inch action figure with his horse Silver, saw that at a Woolworths with my aunt in the fall. I want to say it was probably around November, and that's the first time that I was drawn to a toy, to a certain specific toy. I was drawn to it in Woolworths in a toy section. And I remember just having an absolute fit. I mean, I went ballistic. I was in a good way. I was happy. I was I was just beside myself with joy. Uh, that figure, that Lone Ranger figure, did it for me. It was beautiful in every sense of the word. It was beautiful, and I can look back now at 50, all the way back to that 4-year-old version of myself, and that passion for collecting or having beautiful action figures, beautiful toys, has never left. Has never left. I thought it would leave at some point. It has never left. If anything, it's grown stronger. But my aunt, God rest her soul, uh, taught me a very valuable lesson. You can't have everything immediately. Okay. So that was the first time that I actually learned what layaway meant, the term, the word layaway. And the lady, God bless her, at the cashier was trying to explain that. Imagine explaining it. She did a fantastic job at explaining that to a 4-year-old. She broke it down so beautifully. She said, "Listen, we're gonna take good care of the Lone Ranger. We're gonna take good care of his horse, Silver." She said, "What's his name, Silver? We're gonna take good care of these guys for you." And I'm like looking, listening to her. I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right." And that still hadn't registered that I couldn't take it home. But she explained that to me. She's like, "Well, we're gonna hold him for a little bit for you, just for a little while, and and then you'll be able to take him home with you." And surprisingly enough, at 4 years old, because I wanted him so badly, so desperately, I was okay with that. I was okay with that. The lady said, "Hey, she's gonna take," and I reminded her, "You're gonna take good care of him, right?" And she said, "Yeah, we're gonna take great care of him. We're gonna take care of Lone Ranger. We're gonna take care of Silver. You don't have to worry about anything." So I left Woolworths in 1974, downtown Cleveland, Ohio, with a big smile on my face. I said, "You know what? They're gonna take good care of him." And fast forward a few months to December 25th. And I don't know about you guys. We did Christmas a little differently. Some parents, most of the tradition is that you wait until the morning, and the kids wake up in the morning, you go downstairs, or you go out, leave your rooms and go to the living room where all the toys and stuff at. Santa Claus has just made, just dropped all this stuff off, right? We didn't have to wait till the morning. At the first sign of 12 o'clock, midnight, ushering in the new day, that's when we were awakened by our parents. And I remember my first Christmas, 1974, East Cleveland, Ohio, being awakened by my dad. And I woke up my sister, who's a year younger than me. So I woke her up and remember walking down into the living room. And the coolest thing that my parents could do, and my aunt, they did not wrap, they didn't put any wrapping on Lone Ranger or Silver. Everything else was wrapped up, in beautiful wrapping paper, Christmas wrapping paper. But the Lone Ranger and Silver in these big, beautiful boxes were laid on front and center of what seemed to me a mountain of presents. I could have cared less, okay, about any of those other presents. They absolutely meant nothing to me. I had bikes. There was bikes. Me and my sister could care less. Lone Ranger and Silver. And I saw these guys. I ran right to them. Guys, I was not M.I.B. I haven't been M.I.B. my entire life, okay? So Lone Ranger was coming out. He was coming out of the box. Silver was coming out of the box. And there is an iconic shot with me and a picture with me and my sister, Christmas 1974, with me holding the Lone Ranger in one hand. I believe I had Silver in the other, but I know I had Lone Ranger. If I can find that picture for you guys, I'm going to post it for you. But that passion for toy collecting, that passion for wanting to have something that meant so much to me, it was born that night, or that day, I should say, Christmas morning, 1974. and it has never left me. Now I got older, and my um, my wants and needs changed as I evolved, as I got older, but for the most part, it never it never left. I was always collecting something from comic books, because I was a big comic book geek, big comic book fan. You guys that tune into the channel on a regular basis, our subscribers, have seen a lot of my comic books. Everything has to be beautiful, it has to be maintained in a beautiful fashion, it has to be near pristine. There's no such thing as perfection, but I definitely try to seek it out and get as close to it as I possibly can. Um, G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe is and will always be, for me, my favorite toy. And I know some subscribers and say, well, you didn't have it as a kid. That's why. Because I couldn't have it as a kid. I couldn't have the adventure team or the training tower or the mobile support unit, the vehicle sets, you know, all of that from the 1970s. For me, it just, even saying it now, talking about it now, brings such joy and excitement to me. And seeing my friends who had the GI Joes, seeing them, especially with the adventure team. It was really, the adventure team was what I was big on then. But I couldn't have it. I mean, we just couldn't afford it. These were 12-inch figures. The play sets and all this stuff was extremely expensive, even then, for for a family that was just trying to make it. But GI Joe has always had a special place for me. As you see my Friendship 7 behind me, space capsule. So as I got older, I wanted to start to seek out a lot of these toys that I didn't have as a kid, and I realized, with my MIB mentality, I was never going to take this stuff out. So going to different toy shows and seeing some of the prices for vintage loose figures was astronomical, and I didn't want to pay $200 or $300 for a loose figure, a loose GI Joe. But I realized that, you know what, the best way I was going to make that happen for me was to save a lot of money, work really hard, if I was going to go down the road of being an MIB collector, because the only way I was going to collect GI Joe was going to be in a mint in box capacity, because anybody knows me, it drives me crazy to see a loose figure. I absolutely go bananas to see a loose figure, because I always want to know, where's the box, what was the history behind the packaging, what type of card art or artwork was on the packaging, what year did it say, what the historian, the curator in me was born very early, probably in my teens, and then in my 20s it got stronger. But the best thing for me that happened for me was when G.I. Joe, who was gone for about the late 1970s, after the Super Joe series ended, Hasbro discontinued the 12-inch G.I. Joe action figure. Best thing that could happen to me was, I want to say, in 1991, G.I. Joe returned. Hasbro brought back the iconic G.I. Joe. Not quite the way we remember him. I mean, the Hall of Fame series, which is one of my favorite series. Not everybody's, because of the fact that they weren't very posable. They were built on these big, husky, durable bodies that looked nothing like the more articulate kung fu grip, beautiful figures that we had in the 70s and in the 60s. So I was excited. Everybody was excited. The whole country was excited for G.I. Joe again. If you were a collector, you grew up in the 60s and 70s, you were excited. Let's just say that. If you had G.I. Joe as a kid. But for me, it was a perfect timing because now I could start collecting G.I. Joe and I could have him the way I wanted to, mint in box, without taking him out. So, and I get teased a lot. I get teased a lot. You never take anything out. We did a video about that, so I'm not gonna go into all of that. You guys know I'm M.I.B for a reason. But I'm more than importantly than that, I'm a historian, and I want to tell a story about these beautiful toy lines. I want to tell a story about these beautiful action figures. And the best way to tell it is to, as we come over here behind me, we're looking at this beautiful figure right there, my Hall of Fame electronic talking Duke. The best way to tell that story is by seeing that figure in his packaging, in his beautiful packaging, set up perfectly. So 1991, seeing G.I. Joe back, for me, it was fantastic. It was perfect timing, a match made in heaven, toy collecting heaven, I should say. And that's when it grew. I collected everything, anything you could think of, action figure wise, G.I. Joe wise, I should say. It was, if it came out G.I. Joe, I was collecting it. Target exclusives, KB Toys. You remember KB Toys? I remember KB Toys. Exclusives, Walmart exclusives, Target exclusives. Wherever it was at, I was getting it. And then I had collector buddies that I knew that had a ton of stuff as well. That if I missed anything, they had tons of stuff. And I spent a lot of money, guys. Collecting G.I. Joe is extremely expensive. It's an expensive hobby. And I got some good buddies of mine, like Count Stankus and a few other guys, are getting into collecting G.I. Joe now and wanting to build their collections. And I always offer my opinion. I'm always excited when somebody wants to start collecting G.I. Joe. My first thing, though, rule of thumb is collect what you like, get what you like. If it's vintage or modern, whatever, I don't care how much it costs. It's what you want. But I have to tell you how I feel, so just enjoy it. But it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to be a very expensive endeavor because of the fact that G.I. Joe is iconic. I love Mego. Mego would never, I mean, it was a great time period for Mego back in the 1970s. It's nothing like G.I. Joe. And for every G.I. Joe collector out there, they know precisely what I'm talking about. It's a different breed of animal. It literally is. So if you're getting into G.I. Joe collecting, know that it's going to be expensive. And it was expensive for me for the modern stuff from 91 all the way up until 2005, maybe a few other exclusives between 2005 and 2011. A lot of G.I. Joe Club exclusives. I had to have it all. And it's funny now that I'm 50 years old and I'm looking back on all of these action figures that you see around. I'm gonna pan around. Just all of these action figures. It's hard to believe that I'm looking at modern stuff to me Because I remember walking into toy stores and Walmarts and Targets and purchasing these G.I. Joes. It's funny though. Now they're old now. I have stuff here that's nearly 30 years old, but on the collecting market, they're still considered modern. And it's like, man, this stuff is 30 years old. So when I show somebody something, the worst thing, it's fun and it's crazy for me too at the same time, because I get a lot of subscribers that look at some of my GI Joe videos and they see a figure that I have boxed mint condition and they say, I had that when I was 4 years old. 4. And I say to myself, oh my God, have I gotten that old? I remember purchasing that figure out of a toy store. And I got a subscriber telling me that he got it for Christmas when he was 4 years old. And he's now 26 or something. You know, I get a big kick out of that stuff like that, because I realize how much time has really truly passed. And I look at these figures and I get a lot of times I get a ton of offers for my collection. People want to buy my GI Joe figures and a lot of my figures here at the museum, and they offer me all types of crazy prices for it. But I always share this one line with them that I share with everybody that wants to ask to want to spend, wants to buy my collection or my figures or certain figures out of my collection. I always tell them that each figure here in my museum has a special meaning to me. It has a story behind it. It's a family member at this point. Some of these figures are nearly 30 years old, some a little older, and they all have their place here in the museum. They have their story that connects them to me. And I know it sounds crazy. You say, well, M.I.B, they're toys. They're not human. They're not family members. But in a sense, these figures have been with me through thick and thin, good times, bad times, tough times, rough times, good times, the whole deal. When I moved into my new home, I had to transport all. Now imagine transporting a ton of these GI Joes. It's crazy. It's hard work because you don't want to damage anything. But they've been through a lot with me, and they've seen a lot with me. So that's why the connection has gotten so strong over the years, over the decades. Can't believe I'm saying decades now, not years, decades, with these collectibles. And that's why it's just it means so much to me. I could never really financially part with any of these guys. But that was the GI Joe story. And then when I started my channel, then I started to get back into toy collecting. I realized, you know what? There's other toys that I really like. There's other toys that I really like. Because I was so connected to GI Joe, I was like, you know what? I can't bring myself to collect anything else. I don't want to collect anything else. I think GI Joe's good for me. But I started to see other toy lines that I really liked and had a passion for, or remember from back when I was younger. And I started to collect that. Then I just realized that, you know what? You have a museum. You have a toy museum. And that's where the M.I.B Master Toy Museum was really born. That's where I truly became not just an enthusiast or a casual collector. I became an elite collector. And when I say elite collector, I mean that because at that point, I became so choosy and so picky on what I wanted, because I had more financial firepower to go out and get it. I became extremely obsessive with mint in box mint on card, mint in package, you name it. If it wasn't mint, sealed, the seal couldn't be broken, I wasn't going to put it in my museum. To this day, it's very rare that you'll see something loose in my museum. I have what I call test photo shot examples or extra action figures that I do now. I use now for purposes of videos, but for the most part, they themselves are in fantastic condition. They themselves are boxed and seldom leave their boxes unless I have a video I need them for. So that's how crazy and maniacal I am with collecting. I can't do loose. I will do vintage. Once again, I will do vintage toys if they're not loose. Like I said, it's tough for me to see hundreds of action figures on somebody's shelf without the boxes. And I've been told, well, M.I.B, that's easy for you, but it's hard if you don't have a ton of space because boxes take up space. And they're right. They're right. They do. But I don't know what to tell you guys. I promise I won't go over to anybody's house and start a scene if I see a bunch of loose figures. But it's to each his own, really. It is to each his own. But getting into all these toys, I don't know when it's gonna stop. I honestly couldn't tell you when it's gonna stop. I still have the passion. I think it'll stop when I say to myself that, you know what, there's nothing out there left for me to really collect, because I'm starting to get to that point where it has to be something that I really want. I'm not collecting just to collect. The new Migos came out. New Migo figures came out in 2018, and I have all of them. I'm not missing anything, you know. And Wave 8 is coming out. I still have my I pre-ordered Wave 8 3 months ago. Hopefully it'll come out sometime this year or next year. But I still have my Wave 8 Migo figures on pre-order. When they get here, I will put them in my museum. I'll do the videos, I'll do the reviews, I'll share them with you guys. You guys will get a chance to see how they look up close and personal. But I don't know what the deal is with Migo, you know. So my mindset is in other directions, because when you're a toy collector, and it's all about toy collecting, guys, I could care less about who's running the company, who's doing what. I just want the toys. I just want the toys. So NECA has my attention right now, because Migo ain't doing nothing. But NECA has my attention. Other toy lines have my attention, like Super 7. I'm hooked on my Masters of the Universe. You've seen some of the videos. I'm chasing some of that stuff, but it's really NECA right now, because they're coming out with some great action figures, very detailed, very beautiful 8-inch action figures. So they have my undivided attention right now. So losing that passion, I don't see me losing the passion to collect anytime soon, because there's something always out there that will draw me back to my childhood, or draw me back to those memories. A comic book, a toy, something, you know. And all these great Facebook comic book groups and toy groups that I'm connected to helps a lot too, you know, because I'm always seeing stuff that from other people's collections that I like, or I really want. It gives me something to do. It gives me something to chase, something to look forward to. And as toy collectors, that's what we're constantly evolving into. I mean, we're always looking and seeking and searching for something, you know. But I just, you know, guys, people wanted to know, for me, my collecting history, my story, how I became a collector. It started in 1974. It started in 1974 and it hasn't stopped. You know, I just have more money now and I'm older. So it really hasn't stopped. But G.I. Joe, Mego, NECA, and a ton of other toy lines, you know, will always have a special place for me in my heart because um, I'm a toy collector, plain and simple. I am a toy collector, and like I said, I thought it would stop at some point, but it never did. Guys, I want your thoughts, your opinions, because I could sit here in my museum on my birthday and do this for hours, but I don't have hours to do this with you guys. But leave your comments. If anything I missed or you missed out on, you want to ask me, I'll answer all your questions in the comment section. You have any questions about, you know, how I became a collector and what's my likes, dislikes, some of my favorite toy lines. I covered a lot of this stuff, but if you missed out and you want to just ask, you got something on your mind, leave it in the comment section right underneath this video. I would be more than happy to get back with everyone on their comments. It's so much fun talking old toy stories with you guys. So leave that in the comment section. I'll answer all your questions. I hope this video puts into perspective for you about my toy collecting. And if I left anything out, like I said, I can always fill in the blanks for you down in the comment section. Guys, you know the routine. I hope everybody has a fantastic Friday. I hope everyone is safe and happy. You know the routine. God bless. And by all means, keep collecting.